Okay, can you hear me? Can you hear me, Himanshu? Hello? Hello?
Hello, can you hear me?
Can you hear me, mate?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Okay. Great. Let's get started.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, listeners, that's my co-host Himanshu Pareek, along with me, Andrew McLean, and this is the India Cricket Show. And taken us a while to get this one up and running, but we're underway, and we're looking back at the third one-day international between South Africa and India in Pal, which happened yesterday, and it was a win for India. So they took out the one-day series 2-1 after, of course, drawing the T20 series with one of those matches being washed out. So Himanshu, first of all, welcome into the show. It's great to have you on board for doing these reviews of these matches on the India Cricket Show.
Thank you, Andy. It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure to be here. Great match yesterday. Uh, One of the very special day for India, I will say. A series win in South Africa, never easy, at least for India. Just the second time they won an ODI series in South Africa, and 100 from Sanju Samson could be a career revival in India. Very special day for Indian cricket.
So what did you make of yesterday's match, Himanshu?
Yesterday's match was like it was pretty. It was a pretty good game considering India's point of view because they lost 2 wickets pretty early, like just at 49, and then a guy chipped in whom entire world was waiting for to chip in because everyone know that Sanju Samson is immensely talented, and then he came and strike 100, and then there was this another positive which was from Tilak Verma, which was a very slow inning on a very sluggish surface, but eventually it turned out to be a favorable one for India as he managed to strike at somewhere near 70. So it was typical ODI day, and I'll say that India made a comeback in the match. They were never reaching 296 if there was not that 5 hour inning from Rinku Singh. So it was pretty typical ODI day, like the kind of ODIs we used to see in 2000, near 2011, 2012, where a team will lose early wickets, then build a partnership from there, and then South Africa were looking pretty good in chase when they started. They were 59 for one at one stage, and then Tony D. George kept going, but then Ashdeep and Avesh company strike well. So it was a pretty good win for India, and it just showed a lot of positives. Obviously, it was the first ODI series after they had lost the World Cup final, but there were a lot of positives. KL Rahul captaincy and his bowling changes, his DRS appeals, and also now that India have won only the second ODI series in South Africa, huge confidence booster, a great match, basically a series for India, and a tour of India, like in favor of India, if you also consider T20I series. Very great win, especially Sanju Samson's knock. That makes it even more special for them.
One thing that stands out for me, Himanshu, as a neutral is, I mean, you could almost kind of say this was India's B team, really. I'm not going to go and analyze exactly what's the A team versus the B team, but let's say it wasn't really their main side. Whereas South Africa had a good chunk of their World Cup players playing. Of course, Quinton de Kock's not there anymore as one. Temba Bavuma's another one, but they had a decent chunk of their World Cup side there. So it says a lot about the depth of Indian cricket, doesn't it?
Mhm. Yeah, definitely. Like, see, none of India's sides are B sides these days. All of these guys who were in the team have been playing at IPL for at least 2 or 3 years. And Sanju Samson has been in contention of Indian team since 2014, and he is getting his chance now. this was just his like 14th ODI match. So when we talk about Indian depth, of course, a lot of credit goes to IPL. They get to play at the highest level, and with all these cricketers, like all the senior cricketers which they were playing against, like the kind of like Markram was playing, and they were whoever was there, they have already played with them. So they kind of know what kind of tactics they throw in. So none of the other teams other than India are bit too big to be big bit too big to be beaten by them. Like Indian bench strength is crazy. I don't know what happens to even the senior teams in knockouts, but when it comes to bilaterals, it comes to ODIs and T20Is, India's are just like they're they're they always keep showing their depth. They
Yeah,
hardly lose a series.
yeah,
By like,
exactly. Um, yeah, it's very true. So just looking more specifically to the match now, I watched a fair chunk of it last night. But I I kind of realize that when I'm not massively invested in what in either team, actually the one day form, which is probably my let's say the 50 over format, which is probably my favorite one. Actually, it's very easy to get distracted by other things going on. But I was,
mhm,
or mainly because I was on Twitter so much. But I saw one of your tweets. It was kind of interesting because there were so many people, applauding Sanju Samson for his 100, and it was obviously a well-paced innings and all that type of thing. Got India up to a very high score. Um,
mhm.
and I heard one person even say, that Sanju Samson's, um, basically batting as Virat Kohli would. But I did notice one of your tweets at one point, or posts as they're now called on the new platform. Um, but you said that actually Samson and Tilak Varma actually had one of the slowest 50 partnerships ever.
Yeah, the yeah, it was the fourth slowest partnership for fourth wicket by Indians ever, which was a 50 plus partnership. And for reason that being that, as I mentioned earlier, Tilak Verma started pretty slow. Like it was a very slow inning. It was eventually building pressure on Sanju Samson, and there were many comical comments like Sanju Samson is just surviving a lethal attack from Tilak Verma because one of them had to take risk. The things were actually getting in that position, but like at one point Tilak Verma was playing for like 7 runs in some 35 balls, which is
Right.
not good by any standards in ODI cricket these days. That was actually happening. But as I mentioned, that these guys have experience of IPL, they can turn things pretty quickly. Then there came a over where they got two or three boundaries in that over. Things got under control, and they finished it pretty good. They finished pretty well. Like there was a partnership at the end. It was a 116 partnership from 136 balls or something. So yeah, this was one of the slowest partnership when it started. Like they reached 50 runs partnership in 89 balls, but later they covered up. Samson started hitting a few out of the park, and Tilak Verma also did the same. He finished with decent strike rate of 70, but in the very starting it was pretty slow, and the surface was slow as well. Maharaj and Markram both were getting good turns, and it was a bit difficult to play. And Farley is always interesting to watch ODI cricket in. You never know the conditions. So yeah,
I I
so it was
saw a comment by Ian Chappell during the week talking about 50 over cricket, and Ian Chappell, in my opinion, is one of the most astute minds in the game. And I guess
hmm,
because he's older and he's not involved in sort of the day-to-day commentary and broadcasting, and obviously doesn't play anymore and that sort of thing. He really thinks hard about what he says, and I think his views are very relevant to all forms of cricket these days. And I don't know when this video was recorded, but he was basically saying one of the things that's gone out of T20, out of one day international cricket, 50 over cricket, is the ability for bowling sides to take wickets throughout the innings. And yesterday was another example of that, wasn't it? South Africa just couldn't take wickets in the middle stages, which allowed India to rattle on 90 odd runs in the last 10 overs.
Mm-hmm. Well, it might be a bit harsh on South African side, but it only seemed the South African side which was not able to take wickets, right? Indian side did that. A bowler won a player of the series. Arshdeep Singh was player of the series. He took 5 wickets in that first match and then 4 wickets in the very next match. Obviously, his second match was not their thing, but he did well. South African side, I think they could not utilized on the early breakthroughs they got. Like Rajat Patidar, he was debuting. They could not create pressure on him. Like you remember there used to be a pressure of playing in South Africa for any Asian player, right? At one point, like when it was like 15 years back, there used to be a huge pressure if you're making your debut in South Africa, the bouncy pitches. But Rajat Patidar looked just so comfortable. He came and he started smacking Nande Burger for boundaries. Obviously, he did not make it big enough, but it was a good cameo. But when South Africa got the breakthrough, they could not just capitalize on that. Sanju Samson came, he he stayed on one end. Tilak Verma was constantly struggling, but they could not set a plan for him. So which is kind of true when Ian Chappell says that teams are losing their ability to take the wickets because I think they are pretty easily satisfied if they take 1 or 2 wickets, but they forget that ODI game is very different. It is a long game, and every team has a chance to come back, and that's what happened yesterday. India team were more patient, and so they got back into the game. But South Africa was not concerned with their line and length after 2 wickets. They put some grip on the match, but they started losing it when Rinku Singh came and Sanju Samson started to hit. So yeah.
Yeah, it's just I just found the comments interesting because if I look at my home country, New Zealand, I look at a guy like Lockie Ferguson, who in theory should be a wicket taker. Um, he did all right in a couple of World Cup games, taking a few wickets, but yeah, we just lack guys bowlers that can take wickets in middle overs, and I mean you've alluded to the example of Ashdeep, who's a spin bowler, for example. Um, I look at someone like Adil Rashid. He's another one that's very good at taking wickets during the middle of an innings. But yeah, it's just food for thought. So I guess looking back on the series overall, as I said, it was 2-1 in the ODIs because sorry, in the T20s, because one of the first match was washed out, and then 2-1 to India in the one dayers. What's your feeling overall about the series? Do you think that's the Indian side, first of all, be happy with how the series finished up, particularly as you said, they're playing in what do you call it? I know the Asians always talk about the center countries. You think they've come up with a good result there?
Yeah, I think it was one of India's best performance ever put in South Africa after Virat's 2018 because they generally do not win there, and it was a good performance in both T20Is and then the ODI series. There were many positives. So India are finding a good finisher in Rinku Singh, and one thing that I particularly liked about Rinku Singh is that his ability to strike from the very first ball. Even yesterday, the surface was very much sluggish, but he just came in for his second ball and he smacked it for a good inside out shot to either of Keshav Maharaj or Ajay Markram. And there were lot many such positives. The KL Rahul's leadership, which we are actually looking forward after Rohit Sharma, and then there was this good positive from Tilak Verma, Sanju Samson, and Arshdeep Singh, Avesh Khan. See, what I'm finding pretty much interesting. I would like to take you back to that previous comment you made. that bowlers are failing to take wickets, right?
Yeah, sorry,
On
I
on
just
the
I
flip
just
side,
realized I said Arshdeep as a spinner. I was
hmm,
actually thinking about Axar Patel actually. So no, of course Arshdeep's a fast bowler and he did
hmm,
take the 4 wickets yesterday.
yeah, and see, as you said that bowlers are failing to take wickets. There is this one thing that batters are also failing with the same T20 style cricket. They are failing to make big scores. They are pretty much satisfied with 50, 60 or 70s in ODIs these days, as we see with as we actually saw with Pakistan happening in many World Cup matches. Because they are so used to play T20 cricket, they look pretty satisfied with those 5, 6, 50, 60, 70s. But the good thing is that in this series, Indians tried to take their innings deep, which was a very good sign. Honest Sanju Samson succeeded with his century, but I think this was a pretty much solid series for India. Second match must have a lot of lessons. They did not put a good performance with the bat and eventually lost out to Tony Georgie. And I particularly liked Tony's batting in this series. He is a good positive for South Africa, and there must be many good positives for South Africa from this series, I think, because South African cricket is very important, we know, and they have been struggling badly in last few years when it comes to revenue, when it comes to everything, viewership and all. And I think this was a good show. This was a contested series, even though they were not Rohit Sharma and Virat Kohli. But I think this was actually a good series for cricket, although not many people watched it because there's a lot of cricket these days. And then there's BBL going on, Women's Test going on, and a lot more stuff. But amazing series, and India won it. They deserved it, actually. They were better team.
Just one question for you. There was a lot of criticism during the World Cup on particularly online, and one game I can think about was the opening match between New Zealand and England, and I know that probably the organisers regretted that by playing a match at such a big ground with not enough ticket
Hmm.
sales. But what's your feeling as someone coming from a nation with such a massive population about playing matches in places like Pal, where they played yesterday, and smaller grounds? What do you think about that?
See, uh, that match was empty between England and New Zealand because it looked empty because it's a huge stadium. It's a huge stadium. Like there were around 40 to 50,000 odd people, but it is still looked empty. But when you are hosting matches matches in countries with smaller population, you should always hold matches which are actually small grounds, so they look full. They look enthusiastic enough to watch the players. Like for an example, the test match that happened in Optus Stadium between Pakistan and Australia. It's a huge ground. It has like 60,000 plus capacity, and there were 15K people, 50 average 15 or 16K people attending each day of the match. But it looked pretty empty when you looked it on the television. So I am kind of in favor of hosting matches in smaller grounds where there are like smaller population. It's a good contest to watch for them as well. And when you look at the TV, when you look at the audience, it looks good. And South Africa has pretty good audience for cricket. They're always entertaining, they're always fantastic to watch. They're always singing, and they should get to watch a good game. A good game, I think, and it was one of them. Like it was a good game. Uh,
It's just
yeah,
interesting. I
that.
mean, I saw an article or a headline and a,
Mhm.
and a photo, I guess, in the West Australian newspaper um,
Mm,
today, and it was basically criticising the Melbourne Cricket Ground for having an empty stadium for the one of the BBL matches. Like one whole section was closed off. But it just makes me think about New Zealand. In the last 20 years or so, New Zealand's really focused on the smaller grounds. That after the Christchurch earthquake in 2011, where they had
mhm.
to knock down the old stadium, they basically built a stadium in a park, Hagley Oval, Seddon Park in Hamilton's another traditional cricket ground. The Basin Reserve in Wellington. I mean, there's the University Oval in Dunedin. I mean, we've got lots and lots of options, whereas some of these other countries, I don't think have had the foresight, whilst the T20 juggernaut's been going, they haven't really thought about the preservation of Test cricket.
Hmm.
Just
Uh,
and anyway, that's just my opinion, Himanshu. But speaking of Test cricket, of course, it's not too long until the Test series starts between
hmm.
South Africa and India in South Africa, and of course that's Boxing Day, and the first match will be in Centurion. And then the second match will be in Cape Town starting on the 3rd of January. It's a beautiful venue at Newlands. I've actually been there. I watched South Africa against England in 2000, actually, just after the millennium. But what are your thoughts leading into the Test series?
That is going to be super exciting, I think. Rohit Sharma and Virat Kohli will be returning to play cricket for the first time after that World Cup final defeat. And then there will be some main players in the action, and it's a history on cards once again because India have never won a Test series in South Africa, which is uh, which is a very important feat to add, and I think they will do this time. And also WTC is also on the cards. This is also important for WTC, so this actually will be a tough contest for India, and I am actually looking forward to it because watching Test cricket in South Africa, where there are Asian batters playing, handling all that pace and bounce. It is always exciting, and South Africa always has, and a Test series in South Africa always has something for fans. It always gives you something to talk about other than cricket. So I'm kind of excited. Like when India went there last time, there was a lot of debate on decision making. There were a lot of stump camps scenes where Virat Kohli and KL Rahul were talking to stumps, whole country playing against 11 guys and all that kind of stuff. And I am also kind of expecting that spice once again. There will be senior players coming back into the squad from South African side as well and India. This should be a good contest, man. This actually should be a great match, and I think India will win this. India will actually get
Really?
to win this. Because, yeah, they are looking a better side, and Virat Kohli will try to make it historic because it might be his last Test series in South Africa. Because I don't think they are scheduled to play any in the next 2 years. So India are actually, and he has that. He's missing that feather in his legacy. Like he is not as celebrated in Test cricket as he is in ODIs and T20Is. And winning a series in South Africa and him scoring 1 or 2 centuries can just fix that thing as well for Indian fans at least. Uh,
Just a couple of
because we have never
talking.
done that.
Sorry, Himanshu. Just a
Hmm,
couple of talking points about that series. So, if I'm not mistaken, the last test matches that India played were the ones in the Caribbean, and I was lucky enough to be in Dominica for the first of those, where Ishan Kishan made his debut as wicketkeeper. And I'll just be honest, I didn't think he was very good at wicket keeping in that series. Um,
hmm.
but I've read that KL Rahul's thinking about, was he's put his hand up to keep wicket. So, what do you think might happen there?
KL Rahul should be there, I think, because he's a more senior player, and team management is going to prefer someone who actually has experience of batting in Test cricket enough. In South African conditions, they will he captained. He also has experience of captaincy in South Africa during his last Test series there, and I think it will be if KL Rahul is putting his hands up, he's a decent wicket keeper and I don't think they have any reason to drop him. And Ishan Kishan has pulled off the series due to personal reasons, so he won't be there. So
Right.
it's between it's between KS Bharat and KL Rahul, and KL Rahul will be there. This and he has also himself said that he wants to establish himself in Indian middle order in all the three formats as a wicket keeper. He's now not looking at any opener legacy or any wicketkeeper legacy. He's looking as straight at Dhoni's legacy, and
Well, I
he's
guess
actually improving.
I guess in that sense, whereas once he may well have opened the batting, I think these days it's fairly uncommon for a wicket keeper to bat so high in the order. I'm struggling to even think of one at Test level, and even like Sangakkara, right? Like he gave it up for the last what 6 or 7 years of his career. Um, so I think it probably makes sense for him to bat down the order. But there's another reason why he can't open anyway. It's Yashasvi Jaiswal, who I saw make his Test debut in Dominica, and what a player he is. So I'm really looking forward to seeing him bat again. He really does look the business.
He's fearless enough to he's fearless enough to actually give a chance to India to win a series. If he gets going, he will be there for long. Like if he goes to those 50 runs pretty in a good enough way, like he struggles. Obviously, there will be a lot of struggle we are expecting from Indian batters when it will be South African pace. They are not looking that strong. There are many injury concerns. And Nokia has an injury concern. Kagiso Rabada is having an injury concern, and their their players are having injury concerns. But if they come with a good strength, good enough squad, then they might possess some challenge. And I'm actually looking forward. Shuman Gill will be there. Everyone is exciting to have a look at Shuman Gill if he gets to play. We are not sure where he will still play. I think number three only.
Yeah, well, he
Uh,
batted he batted three in that Caribbean series, so which allowed Jaiswal to come into the side. So I'd imagine they'll do
yeah.
the same. Although Gill didn't do particularly well in that series from memory, but no, I'm just going back to Jaiswal for our listeners that don't know much about him. I'll just read out a couple of stats. So he's played the two tests, the two in the Caribbean. But prior to that, he had a first class record. So these numbers are not quite right, because of course first class cricket includes those two test matches. But his overall first class record is 17 matches, 2,111 runs at an average of 81, and he has 10 first class hundreds in 17 matches. I mean, it's nothing short of astonishing in terms of his progress so far, and his potential. I mean, if Martin Crowe was still alive, God bless his soul, I'm pretty sure that Jaiswal would be one of the first picked in the modern Fab Four.
Hmm. See, in India, we see Shubman Gill as the next Virat Kohli in making. So obviously, that speaks a lot of trust and lot of trust that Indian audience put in Shubman Gill. And some old test match cannot judge him for the potential he has because we have seen him in Australia in that historic test when he played a handy 95 innings, which India eventually went on to win the most celebrated victory in Indian Test cricket history at Gaba. So Shuman Gill will be there. He will be playing at number three, and Yashashvi is in the team. Now this is a pretty this is a pretty new Indian setup. We will be playing without Ajinkya Rahane and Cheteshwar Pujara after decades, with both not in the team at South African soil. But this is a transformation phase, and India are pretty much ready for it, as I feel, because they have developed Yashashvi and Shuman Gill pretty well for these conditions. A lot of first class experience behind both of them, and then there will be Shreyas Iyer, hopefully, and then there will be KL Rahul coming at number six, probably. And so India are looking pretty strong for the series, pretty balanced side, and I think this time they should get that. This time they are on the verge of making a history in South Africa.
Just
This
a
will be
just a
going to be.
final question for you. I mean, it was I think it was a fairly gutsy call for the Indian selectors to leave out Cheteshwar Pujara for that uh, series in the Caribbean. But do you think it was the right decision at this point?
I think the recent form has not favored any of them. Both had a good chance to make it. Like at least Ajinkya Rahane had a good chance to make it in World Test Championship final. He got back into a team after a long break, and he had a good chance to prove what he's made of. But I think that he has missed that chance. And Cheteshwar Pujara also got a good chance after making runs in counties, but he has failed to convert those chances when it comes to playing for India. Like he did not have a good run, and Shreyas Iyer has shown that what he's capable of, and I think that is going to favor him. And Indian selectors are kind of they have actually moved on from Rahane and Cheteshwar Pujara. Because obviously he's one of our most he will always be one of the most celebrated Indian Test cricketers, Pujara. But I think every player has a time, and Pujara has lived his. I
Oh
think they
well,
are,
Himanshu,
yeah,
it's great to hear from you. It's great to hear your opinions. And I'm delighted that you've agreed to join me as the co-host of this show, the Indian Cricket Show, and look forward to being back with you, recapping the first day of the Boxing Day Test at Centurion.
yeah, definitely, man. It will be great fun, and there will be a lot of stuff to talk. I hope it was great joining you again. Uh, See you soon.
Okay, Himanshu. Okay, listeners. So that was the Indian Cricket Show here on Global Cricket Radio. Stay tuned. We'll have more shows coming. But from myself and Himanshu, that's all for now.